All right, what's up, my mathletes? That's right, Mr. Muscarella coming at you. And in this video, we're going to take a look at solving quadratic equations by completing the square. So let's go ahead and take a look at our very first example here, shall we? Now let's review a couple of things as well. The a squared, when we look at this term, we have to recognize that is our quadratic term. And it's quadratic because the degree is 2, and so that is called a quadratic term. The 16a, that only has a degree of 1, so that is going to be called a linear term. So we've got a quadratic term and a linear term, and then these two other pieces, the other two values, these two numbers, negative 56 and 7, both of those are constants. All right, so when we talk mathematics, we need to make sure we're all speaking the same language. So we have quadratic term, linear term, and constants. So when you see this problem, to complete the square, we are going to try to take a trinomial and make it in terms of a binomial squared. So that's the goal, that's what we're trying to accomplish here. Now, initially off the bat, this is not set up that way. So we have to take all of our constants and move them over to the right side. So here's one technique that we would use. Negative 56, add that to the other side, and you'll get 7 plus 56, and that adds up to a grand total of 63. All right, so 7 plus 56 is 53. On the other side, we're going to have a squared plus 16a. Now, a lot of times people say, all right, put plus blank and then plus blank right there. So you're going to add a positive whatever. You're going to add something to both sides. We want that thing to be the same on both sides in order to keep our equation balanced. Now, what is the thing that we're going to add? So in order to determine the thing, we're going to take this 16a. There's positive 16a. We're going to take the 16, and what we're going to do is divide that in half. So I'm going to kind of do this over here on the side. So 16 divided by 2. We're going to square that. 16 divided by 2 gives me 8. And when I square 8, I get 64. So 64, since, is going to be added over onto the right side and the left side. So when the a value, when my quadratic term is 1, I just simply add 64 to both sides. Now on the right side, when we do our arithmetic, add them up, you get 127. On the left side now, we're going to take that trinomial and write it as a term squared, a blob squared, I'm going to call it. And now what is that? So kind of the way that I do this is two ways. We're going to take a look at a squared is always going to just turn into a. And then this 64, what I want you to do is look all the way over here at this number that's right in here. That 8, that is what is going to go right there, is 8. Now since that 8 was positive, when we divided 16 by 2, we're going to put a plus 8 squared. Because if you were to take a plus 8 squared and distribute that and expand that, you would end up with a trinomial that's right above that, a squared plus 16a plus 64. So that's how you can write that really quickly and do that. So from here, once we get that set up, now this is just like solving quadratics by taking square roots. So we'll square root both sides and get a plus 8 equals, now remember, plus or minus, don't forget the plus or minus, error alert, so be careful with that, and you get 127. Now notice how on the left side we didn't have to write a square root around it, so just put a plus 8 and you're good. Now, take the 8, move that to the other side, so when you do that, we'll subtract 8, and that will go first. So negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 127. Now, in this particular example, 127, the square root of that, 127 is actually a prime number. So we can't do anything else with that whatsoever at all. We done. We out with this one. So this is my answer here. Now keep this in mind. Sometimes you might see it written this way. Other times you might see it separated. So you might see negative 8 plus the square root of 127, and a equals negative 8 minus the square root of 127. So both of those mean the same thing as the negative 8 plus or minus 127. So you could break it up into two separate solutions, or just keep it as one with a plus or minus in the middle. So that's it for example number 1. All right, make sure you come on back and check out example number 2.